We are back on the Exit 52 podcast presented by Jimmy's Famous Seafood. And what you all just heard was not a sigh of desperation. It was a sigh of relief. My name is Jake Louque, and I'm joined on my screen by Spenny, by Taylor, Brian making his way over shortly. No doubt contending with Little B, who was, probably having himself a day too. Gentlemen, how we doing after just a rollicking affair at Jerryworld in good ways and bad?
Doing quite well, man. A win's a win, and the Ravens needed it in dire fashion. They end up in circumstances we're going to talk about, but they go to Dallas and get it done. They made winning plays at the end of the game. Lamar Jackson makes the winning throw to Zay Flowers, and you ran for 270 yards. You got the lead, and you managed to close the game out, even though it was a lot tougher than you wanted it to be. You needed to be all of those things, but a win's a win, man, and they needed that. I think that was a good – considering that they won, of course, but a good lesson for this team that was 0-2 that felt like they started to put away. I'm going to say this is a weird comparison. It felt like the Super Bowl against the 49ers.
I was thinking that when we watched the game together today, I was thinking that, and I never said it out loud, but I was definitely like, I had that same kind of, you have pits in your stomach, but like each one has its own kind of unique pull and feel. I have not felt that way since that game 12 years ago at this point. Insane. Taylor, how'd you feel after this?
Yeah, especially as they're bringing up the Brady Super Bowl comeback like the entire time to get him to talk about it.
Who is that guy wearing the shirt 28-3? They showed him like 3 times.
Yeah, that was bizarre. No, I mean, I co-sign Spenny. Look, you take dubs, and the Ravens got one. There's a lot of positives to discuss and some negatives, but I agree with the overall sentiment. They had it shifted into fourth gear for the entire first half and the first drive of the third quarter, and then shifted, downshifted, and the Cowboys took advantage, and some weird stuff happened. The Ravens continually have weird stuff go on when they're trying to close these games out. You don't recover an onside kick. Justin Tucker misses a field goal he's made for a decade. You have some penalty calls go against you, and you're suddenly a little stressed out. But I think your takeaways, if you're a glass half full person, are the first 35 to 40 minutes of the game, and then look, Lamar made a big-time throw in a situation where you get a first down to win the game. He made the winning play, as Spenny said, and I think that's one he can file away for another time. And that's one that I think when the team kind of, we talked about last week, kind of starts to look tight, I think, you look to your MVP and he made the play. And yeah, you go in and beat a Dallas team that kind of showed who they were a little more offensively in the second half. And, I don't think they're as bad as they were, the Ravens, being up that much at the end of the first half. I think the Cowboys are a little better than that. So you take it one on the road. Lamar Jackson can't lose to the NFC. It's pretty unbelievable. If only we could get him to the Super Bowl with that stat. Yeah, good win. Yeah. So
God, he'd be.
Yeah, if only the Ravens could just get reseeded into the NFC side of the playoffs, maybe we will won like 2 or 3 of these by now. So no, happy about it. But yeah, no, Jake, I totally agree with you. Last week watching the Raiders come back, I just couldn't believe that it was going to happen. So even though we've seen it so many times, like, this is the Raiders, it's Gardner Minshew. I know we've seen it, but there's no way. This comeback felt so ridiculous that you had more of the Super Bowl against just very glum. It was just like a very glum, 45 minutes there on the couch.
I was joking with Spenny and the people we were watching with today on the back patio at Clipper City Barber watch parties.
It's like a lovely time you guys had.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, great time back there. We'll get you out there. We'll get the B-Man out there. We'll get some listeners out there at some time soon. Fantastic time. Clipper City Barber, fantastic host. I was joking with some of them when that started to happen. I was like, because all those graphics were coming in. All the, the Ravens fourth quarter this, double-digit leads that. I was like, the production people were just ready, just Johnny on the spot. As soon as it started to kind of go back in the other direction, I was like, yep, they were ready. And whoever's producing the game is like, all right, Charlie, pull up that graphic. Evan, pull this graphic up. Just, boom, 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 boom. They're ready to go. And it's hard to argue, rightfully so at this point. You kind of, they seem to have an issue with this continuing to happen to them. Obviously, it's a well-discussed talking point, but overall, to me, this game is just the gamut of emotions run far and wide. They run in every single direction, and I have a hard time talking anyone off of anything. If you're positive after that one, I'm kind of with you. If you're negative after that one, I'm kind of with you too. To me, this is just a team that I don't think is really a great team. I don't know that I'd call them a serious Super Bowl contender right now. but I'm just going to take the wins when we can get them and have fun with them. And to me, overall, it was a fun win. It was pulse pounding, not really fun of a watch there in that fourth quarter. Like we talked about the fun atmosphere that Spenny and I had. As Ray Lewis would say, you could hear a rat piss on cotton amongst what was generally a party atmosphere for that entire fourth quarter. Nobody was talking. Nobody was saying anything. There were some non-Ravens fans in attendance that were.
It was just a lot of, oh my gods.
Yeah, having a little fun. A lot of, oh my gods. I wasn't doing, John, my guy, John Harbaugh, not a great body language game for him. And early on, actually, he went to the hands on the knees as Brian is just popping in and out of this thing like a whack-a-mole. There was just kind of he was doing the hands on the knees, the body line. I don't think I saw a smile from him once today. I was thinking of doing the hands on the knees myself at one point because it's just not a fun watch. But yeah, man, overall, like this to me, like it just kind of speaks of some issues with that this team is hopefully not going to be dealing with the entire year, but it just feels like a growing team. It feels like a young team. Once again, eclipsing the 100-yard mark in terms of penalties. That is a big issue. And they had some really ticky-tacky ones today. I think you could really complain, especially on the roughing the passer on Prescott, some other ones that really cost them. But this is just kind of I'd say an incomplete performance, but overall, like I walk away from it feeling like your season was on the brink and you pulled it back from the brink. And now you've got a very similar matchup coming up. No matter what Buffalo does tomorrow night, they'll at least be 2-1. That's going to be another one where you walk into it saying like, all right, got to have this one, and it's a tough opponent, and let's strap on the helmets and see what happens.
Whoever made the that compilation graphic of all of the Ravens' fourth quarter or second half leads, it's like this all the score bugs put together. That person is a menace. I was like, please don't let this get added to that.
You mean the 10-point lead they had 12 years ago? That's on that
graphic.
The 10-point lead they had in the second quarter 12 years ago.
It's like the NBC. It's like an NBC primetime graphic from like 4 eras ago of that. It's graphic.
Like my guy Kornacki is in front of the map. He's just like saying that this county and this and that, and it's just connecting the dots. Really,
John King
stuff. Yep, John King. What a menace he is.
Yeah.
We'll talk about more, but
districts.
Let's look at the third quarter here, and a couple things I want to read off. I do like to do the stats to begin, just a little bit, just the box score basic stuff. The Ravens ended up running for 274 yards on 45 carries, including the victory formation as well. So when you take that out, that's going to juice that up a little bit. 274 yards, really 7 yards a carry almost when you take the victory formation out. So they go down in the third quarter to open the half, and they go Lamar Jackson 6 yards, Derrick Henry 3 yards, Derrick Henry 29-yarder on 3rd and 1. Then they run for 8 yards. Holding call on Voorhees is where the party kind of got started there. Lamar runs for 16 yards on 1st and 20, and then Derrick Henry scoots for that 26-yard touchdown. At that point, it's 28-6. They came right out. They ran right down the Cowboys' throats. And the thing that I don't want to get lost in this, the Cowboys were just as desperate as the Ravens were in such a dire situation. They just got bodied at home last week by a Saints team that ran the football down their throat. This was embarrassing for the Cowboys. It was embarrassing for Mike Zimmer. It was embarrassing for their defense. It was embarrassing last week when it happened against the Saints. Their run defense is a joke. It's an absolute joke. So I can also understand the take of like, oh, the Ravens did what they were supposed to do, so, don't want to give them too much credit. Sure. Ran the ball for 274 yards there. So they did what they were supposed to do. They out-executed. They straight up sunned them running the football. And then it gets to that point here, and I'll pass it to you, Brian, where then the Ravens get the ball back after a punt, 4th and 29, after Kyle Van Noy gets a second sack, who's been insane with the orbital bone. Ravens get the ball 7:52. They drain the clock all the way down to 1:36 in the third quarter, starting at 7:52. They're running the ball, dinking, dunking. Falele gets a holding. Voorhees gets a legal use of hands. Even Nick Moore gets a holding on the punt and ran the clock out effectively for the Cowboys. Cowboys get the ball back, and, they fumble on this drive. They end up turning the ball over to start the fourth quarter. They miss the 4th and 14 with the offensive pass interference and give the ball back to the Ravens. Ravens run it down to 10 minutes there. Cowboys go score a touchdown, and they get the onside kick. I can't think of an onside kick that I've seen recovered in the last like year and a half or two.
Yeah, there wasn't like a surprise onside.
Yeah, the one that the Ravens had a couple years ago against the Browns when Huntley was playing in that second half, like that was like maybe the one that I can think of for the Ravens like in a long ass time. Like that is something that I was thinking about it and I was like, yeah, maybe like once a year you have that happen. But if you look at the math, it's probably not even once a year. How often are you in position to even kick an onside kick? It's not every game. And how often do you recover them? Probably even less. It's crazy. So, I mean, that's definitely like, that's an act of God. The Tucker problem with the 46 yards, it's another, you know, that's a big issue. If your kicker can't hit from 46 in today's NFL, that's a big problem for you. Overall, I mean, I think this was probably not as close of a game ultimately as, you know, the final score dictates. But Brian, what were your first impressions?
I don't know. Can we just have a normal game? I'm begging for just a normal like 24-10 win where we go back and forth in the fourth quarter and just kind of get a couple first downs, then we punt and then maybe give up a field goal. And no, we just can never make it easy. But I mean, I'm trying to do my best to just focus on the first 3 quarters and change where we dominated them pretty much in all facets. I thought we were very strong defensively for the first 3 quarters. Pass rush was unreal. Dak Prescott never looked all that comfortable. Even cornerback play, I thought Brandon Stevens was a dog today, especially on some of those long balls. But geez, I'm trying to give them some grace here. Like when you have a 3-score lead, you play a little bit softer with more cushion, and like sometimes you give up that long touchdown drive, and that happens, right? Like they're bound to break through at some point. When you give up the onside kick, you got to go right back out on the field. So like they deserve some sympathy in that sense, but how many times have we seen this movie where they just can't make the one play or make the one takeaway or get the turnover on downs? I mean, I know they started the quarter off with one, but like just something to just stop the momentum, like stop the bleeding, and they just can't do it. So, you know, the offense had multiple bites at the apple at trying to shut the thing down, and they got it done ultimately. And I feel like that's a good sign. So that's like one component of the recurring issue that can at least feel good about, hey, we reversed the tide a little bit. So that's encouraging. But altogether, like it's like ingrained in the culture. Like is it a fan base thing? Probably more so than the team itself. But like I can't help but think the players, as soon as that onside kick is recovered, is just like, oh fuck, we're drowning in sand. Like, yeah. So that can kind of eat you alive from the inside out at a certain point, the more it just kind of cements itself. So hopefully the offense can kind of reverse course and, I don't know, it's just so tough. Like the offense played an awesome game, and it's like, how can we even like really harbor on that? But man, it's just
the game script just got so weird where like the offense played awesome, the defense played awesome, but it was just a long game. Like there was just, you know, all the penalties and everything. The game flow.
The game didn't end until almost 8 o'clock.
The game flow was totally off. Like it was just taking forever. And like, you know, that can wear on you too. And like when, like to your point, Brian, like when you're not on the field for that long as an offense, that can be a big time issue. And like you said, when the defense has to go right back out onto the field, that's just like, it's really weird. And the Cowboys, like I was making this point to Spenny before we got going, like they're a team that is set up pretty well to play with negative game scripts because Dak has got a quick trigger. He's got good weapons that he can throw to. And obviously that came through. And I think you were facing a tired Ravens defense in that fourth quarter. So you can kind of take advantage of those soft spots. So ultimately, yeah, just a very weird fourth quarter. Like they did step on the throat there on that final drive, but we had Eli here making the point. The 3rd and 3 play call, or, you know, play call is one way to put it, but I just think the play in general, the execution was weird. He had an Andrews on a little stick route. Lamar just fires like a Grayson Rodriguez fastball over his head. I don't know what was going on with that. They snapped the ball with plenty of time. And I don't know, that was one play that probably could have salted the game away. And it's just like that kind of felt like the moment where it's like, okay, that's the Raiders all over again with the Charlie Kohler, you know, thing getting called back. That's the mistake that they make. And they were fortunate that it really didn't cost them, but that was certainly part of it. But overall, like to me, that first half and really like the first 3 quarters offensively, first 2.5 quarters, good enough to get it done. But it just got weird and it got a little bit away from them. And mentally, I could see why they would be frayed after all that had gone down in this game. But like I continue to harp on, it's just kind of a Rorschach game where, like, if people walk away from this feeling good, feeling sigh of relief, I think I'm a little bit more in that camp. I'm with you. If you walk away from this feeling like some of these issues are perpetual and just continue to show up and you're frustrated and it's fire Harbaugh this and all that, like, I totally get where you're coming from too. There's just not a whole lot to take away from this game other than the Ravens keep the ship afloat for another week, to me.
I think there's a lot to take away from this game. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned. Zach Orr, who is the youngest defensive coordinator in the NFL, 32 years old, first time ever calling plays here. And Brian, you make a point here. So the Cowboys end up getting the ball fourth quarter, 10-41. The last time the Ravens ran a play on offense was with 11:27 in the fourth quarter. Tucker misses the field goal. The next time the Ravens touched the ball was 18 plays later, 18 consecutive plays. So on that first Cowboys drive, we have the comment here, JJ Sanders, it looked like the defense was able in straight cover 2 throughout the fourth quarter, and Dak was just able to exploit it. That's what they went into. They went into dime. They started playing too high safety. And what do you want to do with a big lead? Keep the ball in front of you, make them go the long, hard way, complete passes, short passes, runs after the catch, tackle well, tick, 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 use the clock to your advantage. But then you have to go right back out on the field. Suddenly it's a game that the Cowboys are back in after that onside kick. So having to snap back into, oh, it's a game. Oh, I need to start calling this game not in that soft defense anymore to get off the field to prevent another score. That's a tough switch to flip when your defense is just on the field and on the field and on the field. The Ravens weren't able to get pressure much late.
And I think that's where the 49ers Super Bowl comparison comes in, because you had the long wait with that, blackout, and it just felt like the energy was just deflated from the team in that second half.
Yeah, so I mean, the Cowboys find rhythm. They score a touchdown, and you're like, okay, we made them go the long way. And then the Cowboys recover. I think I saw that 4.1% of onside kicks have been recovered in the last decade. Like, it doesn't happen. So then you have to go right back out. You don't get a break, have to try to flip the switch and start calling the game to get off the field again, not just to make the Cowboys go the long, hard way. And you got to give, you'll give the Cowboys offense a little credit. Dak, like you said, Jake, the Cowboys are not built to run the ball. They are built to throw the ball 50 times. And they did, and they had to, and they moved the ball and they score again. I do think, a note on the Cowboys, I think that CeeDee Lamb acted unacceptably today. I think that he was a shit show today for the Cowboys, and his emotion and how volatile he was being and his body language and all those things, not what you want to see. And the biggest play of the game to me defensively was the 2-point conversion, where I turned and said it to people we were with, they're going to throw the ball to CeeDee, because if they don't get it, he's going to fucking go insane. He was ready to explode. So they run like a cross. He's the number 2. And the Ravens, to their credit, said, okay, we're going to have a safety outside, Roquan Smith inside, and we're going to pass to another safety. They effectively triple covered him. If the Cowboys did something creative or a better manufactured play to score there that wasn't just we have to feed CeeDee because he's going nuts, it felt like his mental issues of this game were why they ended up not converting that and making it a 1-score game. And I thought that was huge. I thought the Ravens were composed there. We're going to come down and say the big thing was the not running Henry or whatever on 3rd and 3. They try to throw a pass. It's empty. There's not the threat of the run. I don't know why it wasn't just like a Lamar Jackson power or counter or something like that. It felt like they couldn't stop it all day, especially pulling to the outside, things like that. But I thought it was a good lesson for Zach Orr in having to try to flip that switch back on, and takeaways from that, trying to get the team re-engaged and do so in a difficult fashion. And again, I'm going to say the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy people are talking about fire Harbaugh. I mean, the Cowboys media coverage is 10 times harder, 10 times more. Skip Bayless is going to be going nuts. Stephen A. Smith is going to be going nuts.
Skip's going to be happy because the greatest baller in the history of football closed it out there on the
Stephen A's already watched Stephen A's video. He's got a video out there. He didn't go too hard on him today. He
might be a little sleepy. It was a little late for Stephen A. He's got to be up in the morning.
Yeah.
But I thought that was, a team that had to try to do what they did in the Cowboys, and it was only enabled by that onside kick. So we're going to sit here and we're going to rip them apart and go crazy. And to your point, Brian, it's always something. But the something being an onside kick, I mean, Jesus Christ, it's just bad. Like, it's just bad.
It's total force majeure. That is an act of God. Like that.
The JT miss is the one where it's like, oh, this could get a little weird here, where it's like, oh, something doesn't sit right. There's a little rumble in my tummy here.
Yeah.
It was still like, okay, no sweat. Like, we got this. It's still a 3-score lead, and they haven't done much to threaten us too much so far. So.
And that's what's so interesting about the Cowboys, because the Cowboys are going to come out of this game and we're going to point fingers at Zach Orr, even though what we just talked about is they just wanted to make them go the long, hard way, not, let the ball go over their head. God forbid one tip ball goes the Ravens' way or one call goes the Ravens' way there in the second half. But Dak Prescott ends up 28 of 51 for 379 yards there. So it's going to look worse on paper. It's going to feel terrible, awful, dirty, all of those things. But again, I just think the onside kick was the drama of America's game of the week in Dallas with these two head coaches that we were saying it was like the deadbeat dad bowl in a way between McCarthy and Harbaugh, where it's like you only talk to your dad on your birthday. They like have that kind of look on their face of disappointment or whatever the hell it is. And I don't know, man, both of these teams are very desperate. I am thrilled that the Ravens walked out of there with a win. I'm thrilled with the way that Lamar Jackson played. Yeah, sure. He missed the one to Mark Andrews or whatever, but he played about as well as he could have. He controlled that game. He controlled at the line of scrimmage. He didn't let things compound. He makes the throw to Zay Flowers, and then he ices the game with his legs. So I thought Lamar was spectacular. I thought that the game plan from Todd Monken was exactly what everyone wanted. Play action and run the fucking football against a team that just got gashed by the Saints. So fate doesn't go your way, but your $250 million, your $250 million quarterback made the throw and made the run that you paid him to make and to get you away from being 0-3. So I feel fantastic about that. And Lamar seemed cool, man, the whole game afterwards too. He seemed cool. He seemed like a leader in many ways. He seems like he's really stepping into those shoes now that he's up in his mid to upper 20s, we'll say, like Jake likes to say. But
early, late 20s. I don't mean to cut you off, but I loved the body language from him when they were starting to come back. There have been games when that's happening and he's sitting there and kind of looking a little sullen and things like that.
We talked about it last week. He had the couple of like where he just looks kind of blank in his eyes, like, what is this? Yeah. What is happening right now? He did not look
1,000-yard stare. Absolutely. And like this time around, it didn't feel like that. Like they cut to him and he's not like joking around or laughing or making light of it, but he's just got kind of a light air about him. He's, patting his guys on the shoulder. Like it looked like, what, we got this. And it's not quite the last year what we saw where it's the stay locked in and he's, going nuts and like, in that kind of way. But it just felt like a calming presence, which I think really was needed. And to your point, Spenny, fantastic game. I mean, he was one incompletion through that first half, I think, and that carried over through much of the game. You win the turnover battle. Great job by Nate Wiggins on that turnover in the red zone. That completely changed the tenor of this one, punching that ball out. Fantastic.
CeeDee Lamb sloppy with the football.
Dude, CeeDee Lamb, you want to talk about body language. Spenny, you already made the point, but my God, like just disastrous from him. And overall, I mean, like that's kind of
has a $3 million chain on, smacking the ground, having a temper tantrum like a 4-year-old. It was nuts.
Yeah, exactly. And this just kind of speaks to a little bit of like the Ravens haven't had a ton more success than the Cowboys in the postseason, but this just kind of felt like teams that have sort of been in this situation. And again, we've made the point that the Ravens have been on the wrong end of these a little bit more often than we like recently, but like they've also survived them a little bit more. And it just feels like the Cowboys, they're kind of in their own head in a way that this was sort of an in your own head bowl. And it felt like the Ravens sort of prevailed in that way. So yeah, I mean, credit to them. And like when I said that like there's not a whole lot to take away, Spenny, I didn't mean in the terms of like basically what I was saying is I come out a little bit more on the positive side of it. And yeah, I do think that ultimately you're totally right that like if this onside kick goes their way, we're definitely talking a lot more positively about this game. And like the penalties, I mean, the Ravens got themselves in trouble on some. But the Voorhees, I think it was, with the hands to the face, that was a phantom. Like that, he had his hand around his neck. Like that was not a hands to the face. Roughing the passer, terrible. Like it is, and like that gives him a fresh set of downs. I think that might have been a third down. It was a critical call that really cost you. This penalty thing is maybe they're gonna continue to get themselves in trouble. But like going over 100 yards,
that would have made it 3rd and 10.
Yeah,
roughing the passer would have made it 3rd and 10 with 3 minutes and 50 seconds remaining.
Right. Going over 100 yards, that's not going to happen every week. And when it happens 2 weeks in a row, that's insane. And I think that does speak to a little bit of bad luck. So again, for everyone that's frustrated, I get it. But like, I walk away from this one feeling pretty much positive because like I said, act of God on that onside kick and everything else. And there are positives to take away. In Lamar Jackson's performance, I think overall you give this defense a lot of credit for what they had to do and kind of what they were assigned with what happened in this fourth quarter. You know, I give these guys a lot of credit. Again, I'm not totally convinced that this is like some kind of world-beating team that they've assembled here, but they battled their asses off today and they needed a win and they got it.
The good part is you watch the rest of the league the whole day and there's no world-beating teams. So
yeah.
It's not as if the Ravens have to be a juggernaut right now. They just need to play themselves into one later in the year. And to speak to the defense part, you know, you look at I don't mean to like Mike and Mad Dog the drive chart here, but for the Cowboys to start the game, 7 plays, 13 yards, punt. 7 plays, 20 yards, field goal. 7 plays, 60 yards, fumble. You make a play there. 3 plays, 0 yards, punt. Like it was just punt. Like, so I thought the defense played great, and then it just got weird at the end. To me, Jake, I net out where you are. You watch the first 40 to 45 minutes of that game, and you're like, that's exactly the team we wanted. As you said, Spenny, everybody wanted them to run it 40 times, and that's exactly what they did, and they looked fantastic doing it throughout the entire first half and that first drive of the third quarter.
Derrick Henry was unbelievable.
We haven't even said his name. He was incredible.
Well, that's because if you listen to RDT, Ravens fans apparently
we've been saying he's been washed for years.
Yeah, that's all we've been worried about, right? We've got a team that's been, you know, in the playoffs the last couple of years that have been, you know, not worried about that. We're worried about whether or not Derrick Henry on, you know, some boneheaded Titans team is washed.
He was tremendous. They gave it to him, so I take that as a positive. You see what the Ravens can be in terms of a ball control, run it down your throat, possess type of offense. And, you know, you couldn't have been more, and people couldn't have been happier at the half. So I'm going to choose to go that direction on this one. Obviously, Jake, I totally agree with you. The penalties are a problem. And even if you have some bad calls, you're still at the point where some calls against you takes you to 13 for over 100. So you've got to clean up some of that. But hopefully that luck kind of swings away. But I'm going to choose on this one after last week where we did the entire like depressing 60 minutes of talk. I'm going to flip this way and say, like, look, that's with Derrick Henry. That's kind of the Ravens offense you looked for. It was a great Lamar Jackson game, and the defense played great against the guy that was runner-up for MVP last year. No matter what you think of Dak, I mean, he's a guy that puts up prolific offensive numbers year after year after year, and they shut him down for the majority of the game. So I thought it was a great performance. Obviously, people are going to focus on the back half of it, but the front half is the best they've played all year for an extended period of time. So that is improvement, and so you hope that you go into a home game this week on Sunday night and you take that forward. So, but God, was it fun to watch Derrick Henry. I texted you guys in like the middle of the game and I was like, this guy's just awesome. And then RDT went on his whole ridiculous thing about how we've been talking about how he's been washed. Like, no, I don't know if anyone's had more respect for Derrick Henry than Ravens fans. So that to me is a little bit ridiculous. So I hope RDT comes on this show and defends himself. Comes on.
He's got some things to answer for here with his team losing to Malik Willis. I mean, come on, RDT, let's clean it up. But
it's called deflecting.
He didn't even address my comment today, did he?
No, he did not.
What was the comment? if you can say it on the screen, what was the comment?
I think it was something along the lines of Malik Willis looking pretty legit.
Yeah, he was like,
it was bait. It was absolute bait.
That was total bait. Yeah,
he tried to bait him.
He had to.
We got him 3 hours later to comment on how everyone thought Derrick Henry was washed. He said, "Hand to God too. Evoke the Lord."
Hand to God. Well, he didn't capitalize God. I noticed that. That's
which God? Which half of him?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's got a foot in each yard there actually. So interesting stuff there from RDT. Get a lot of RDT talk on this podcast. So, you know, this guy's
Derrick Henry's guy, Eric.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. Libstool RDT. Yeah, the Orioles, you know, just continuing to flounder. He's got to find something to latch on to here with the Titans too. So, you know, it's tough overall. But I mean, as a fan base too, to the point you were making, Taylor, there, give yourself grace as a fan, man. You've been through hell these last 2 weeks. I'm talking to myself. I'm talking to you three. I'm talking to everyone listening to this. This has been a tough couple of weeks with the toe and then with last week. And then if you want to go all the way back to the AFC Championship game, which Brian, I think you might actually still be kind of in some sort of K-hole from that one. I don't know if you fully recovered. So we've been struggling as a fan base here for the last 3 games, for the last 2 games this season, it's okay to sometimes just take a sigh of relief, take a win when you can get it, and just move on to the next one.
They like kind of really need to win this game. Like just the fact that they got the win, it's breathed some life into the season. It's not like it's over if they were 0-3, but
they started 1-2.
0-3.
You can mix that up however you want. You started 1-2, right?
It's like this was pretty must win, not must win, but you know what I mean. It's just.
By the way, not to jump in on you, Banks, but I just did a little research when we were purportedly saying that Derrick Henry was washed 2 years ago. He had 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns.
For sure.
So washed. Go ahead. Sorry, I just
find the receipts on that. Like I don't think
I would like to see all those.
What he loves to do is he loves to take.
He loves to manufacture storylines, or he loves to find one person who said one thing and generalize an entire fan base on it.
He'll find some tweet from 2 years ago from like Lamar Stan 420, which that's the name.
Doesn't even actually exist. That's his perfect straw man that he's been making all year.
I can't believe people are talking about blank and it's one on Twitter.
It is
just catching strays. I love it. I love to get mixed with him.
Jake, you talked about you briefly mentioned through these first 3 games, it's the toe. It's then last week it felt like the Ravens were not willing enough to run play action, run the football at the end of the game, take control, grab it, and then this week were they a little too in that card? Did they run the ball a little too much? All of those things. These are good experiences to have as a team now early to calibrate correctly and talk through it as a team through the week, go review, have the tensions build, decompress, and figure out the right path moving forward. And they exercise their demons a little bit. The offense had to win the fucking game. And that's what it keeps coming down to. The defense makes the offense go the long, hard way. The Ravens get the ball back, and they end up punting the ball very shortly afterwards. And then the defense has to try to re-trigger, refire in a closer game. And it's suddenly 1 score, not 2 scores. It's suddenly a field goal that they have to prevent, not a 14-point lead anymore.
And when you talk about that, you're talking about Lamar Jackson scrambling for that first down to officially ice it. But what we have not mentioned, 3rd down and 6. About 4 minutes to go, 4 minutes and change. And that's the ball game. If you don't get that, Lamar Jackson drops back. Zay Flowers makes a cut to the sideline, little 7 route. Lamar puts it right there. Total faith in him. He jumps up, makes an airborne catch, comes down with it. I mean, that was massive right there.
I love the use of airborne, not midair, because midair is just air.
You're absolutely right. Airborne catch, comes down with it, and that gets you a critical first down. Then you go on to get that next one. I mean, again, that is icing a game out. We want to talk about this. People are talking about this one, and I think us included to some extent, that they kind of survived it a little bit. But you're right, Spenny. They did have to go get it, and God damn it, you have to credit them. And I think somebody I saw somewhere. I don't mean to RDT this and say many people are saying, but yeah, I am seeing a little bit of Lamar had to bail them out. Todd Monken this, John Harbaugh that. I'm not really giving John Harbaugh or Todd Monken a ton of credit for this one, but they did call that last play with Jackson on the run there. That was a read option. It wasn't really a scramble. So,
I'll give Todd Monken credit for how pretty that first drive was. I mean, that was scripted to absolute perfection. So
that rollout to Kolar was fucking awesome.
Charlie Kolar, by the way, has he ever run with a football in his hands?
He looked like he was trying to find somebody to block.
Yeah, that was
football in his hands.
If you guys ever played QWOP, the QWOP, where you're trying to run with the Olympian, and it's the hardest game in the world, that's kind of what it looked like. I tweeted that GIF out. Got some good burn.
Shout out to Nelson Aguilar too, making a play, making somebody miss up the sideline. He looked fresh in this one. They look good on the turf, man. The offense looked fast. Even Daniel Faalele, whose jersey I will be purchasing after this game.
I hate that. I hate that for you.
I stand with Dan. I'm a real fan of Dan Faalele. I will be wearing that jersey, hopefully Sunday, to the stadium. I stand with Dan. And he was getting out in space there, front side pulling him. He was moving on that turf. Lamar Jackson, baby, I'm sorry. You had to come to play outdoors on grass. Baby, you look fast on that turf, baby. I want to see you on that turf more. Let's get you down to New Orleans for the Super Bowl this year, man. I want to see you on that turf.
Throwing a lot of babies there. You're
Justice Hill also had a little extra burst on the turf today. He continues to sneakily play very well.
I think sounded like Vince Vaughn and Swingers there with all the baby.
How about Derrick Henry also just randomly slipping? Also,
yeah, that was weird.
Late in that game, and he was like, "What? Just how did what? How, what?" That was the grand irony. If the Ravens did somehow manage to blow it and lose, They're like, all right, everybody, just hand it to Derrick Henry at the end of the game. He just fucking trips and falls down.
It's just a washed running back making a washed running back play. I mean, that's just what we've been saying.
That would have been dominating the discussion. I mean, everyone would be talking about that. Everyone.
God, he was awesome.
Certainly. But we haven't talked about that safety situation either.
We haven't mentioned that. JJ Sanders had the comment when we were talking about the penalties. Very weird. I still don't know where I net out on that. It probably was grounding. It probably was at the very least. I think did they call an ineligible downfield? I'm not even sure.
It was illegal touching because the lineman caught the football and it wasn't tipped. And we were talking about it at the little watch party we did, and it did look like beyond the lineman, there was the fullback, another 6 yards downfield.
He released though. He was gone. He was in the vicinity when the pocket started collapse, but he was out of there.
But that's kind of what intentional grounding is, though, right? You can throw the football over everyone's head out of bounds as long as it's in that direction and there's someone there.
But Supreme Court porn ruling. Come on, man. It's
Matabike got a big hold early on, and he basically got a safety. So he was making an impact in this.
Which, by the way,
is that because it was caught, the rule for intentional grounding is probably something along the lines of it has to be on an incompletion.
Yeah,
which they got to fix. They got to close the loop there.
That's what I was thinking when we saw it, and I gotta call out my guy Spenny here, who was just making the point, probably in jest, but that the refs were loving the Ravens in this game, that they wanted them to win, and all this kind of stuff. And I was
early on they were missing calls. They were
partner, just wait, just you wait, and goddamn it, did we wait and did that tide turn?
It did get nuts. I thought Todd Monken also in this game had some really cool screens. They had the little pop out to Justice Hill in a big situation. I believe it was on 3rd down. It was a 2-man screen. The defense they were bringing pressure, and I think it was maybe Stanley and Justice Hill just popped out. Justice Hill cruised. They got Derrick Henry involved on a screen. I thought they used the screens really well, and it wasn't these big ordeals trying to get 4 linemen out. It was just 2-man screens, quick, pop, 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 and Lamar Jackson looked really smooth. A lot more rhythm in the offense, a lot more rhythm in the pass game.
How about it may have been first quarter, second quarter, when we were rolling a bit on the ground, but we weren't quite full force like we were in that opening drive of the third quarter. Calling, I think it was a quarterback power to the right on a 3rd and 6. I mean, that's a spit in the face right there. It's we're just going to go get this. We're going to get downhill on you. We're going to pull everybody and just run out, just sprint out to the right, and we're going to beat you to the sticks. Just
feels like the screen tilts a little bit when those happen and you run them correctly. It just feels like they're running right downhill. I love those.
Yeah,
definitely. I thought Monken had some junk in the tank for this one. He got into the vault a little bit there, and man, oh man, I mean, decompressing from this game takes a while. We got Jake Brown here, massive sigh of relief with that Zay catch. I was seriously sick in my stomach. I was seriously distraught late in this game. I felt nasty. As soon as it went the Tucker into the onside kick, I felt death in my gut. It was a terrible feeling.
Go a step further on the the Super Bowl comparison to this game. That had big vibes of that Flacco to Bolden ball on the right sideline where he just went up and got it.
Almost the same call.
It was a better throw. It was more by design and was just more routine, but still just huge.
Bolden pulling that down and just jawing at Chris Culliver. I think it was just getting in his face mask. That will be just burned into my brain until the day I die. Amazing callback.
Kyle Hamilton looked really strong in this game. I thought Ardarius Washington played really well in the back end. Marcus Williams was making some plays back there. Nate Wiggins, who was in a car accident, doesn't practice a ton, hops back in. He is still he was a true junior. He's not some 24-year-old rookie through COVID. Coming back in this one with some tough assignments, ends up getting the DPI on CeeDee Lamb. That's why I said the refs are in the Ravens' favor, because there was kind of that sussy holding on the other end of it that wiped out that DPI that would have put them at the 1. But I thought this secondary came to play. Brian, you mentioned Brandon Stevens. He was playing physical. He was coming up and tackling. Brandon Cooks, he was on pretty hardcore and made sure not to grab, not to hold, not to let Brandon Cooks slow up and run into him. He was under control a lot of the time. Marlon Humphrey was playing pretty solidly. CeeDee Lamb did swipe that interception out of his hands at first. We were like, oh no, Marlon Stone hands. Then you see CeeDee actually ripped it out. So thought the secondary looked fast, looked aggressive. Kayvon Turpin did kind of have that nasty little route for the touchdown. Dak put a really good ball on, and I think he turned Ardarius Washington around a little bit. Good throw, good catch there. but was really happy with Ardarius Washington coming back in, and he's a fun story, man.
Yeah, good game for Eddie Jackson too. He was really active. Like, I don't know if he made a ton of big plays, but he was just around the ball a lot, and I think he had a couple breakups and everything. So I was impressed by him.
Certainly, yeah. We got my boy Judge Baltimore here. A lot of damage to Jake Ferguson late. Again, it's both Kyles. Yeah, both Kyles are active. Van Noy, 4 sacks with a fractured orbital bone. Insane. Both Kyles definitely showing up. But yeah, it's the continuation. We've seen it all 3 weeks, right? The Ravens are playing the too high. Maybe not quite as much disguise. I would like to be fact checked on that. I'll check out some charts this week. Not quite as much disguise pre to post snap. They're making teams throw over the linebackers. And I mean, Dak threw a ball that had to be, it was to Ferguson, had to be, I believe on third down up the seam, had to be a 10 out of 10 throw over Roquan Smith. Could not have missed. There was a safety behind if it was overthrown. Roquan Smith was up high, ready if it was, a little bit too much of a floater or just didn't have enough mustard on it or something. And that's where the Ravens are seceding that area. They're daring you to throw over their linebackers. They're making teams go the long way. We watched Rashee Rice have a big game. Devonta Adams had a couple big plays last week. Jake Ferguson, it felt like, was the damage today a little bit, especially in that second half. So I'm curious to see where Zach Orr and where these linebackers and safeties kind of continue to progress, because that is your soft spot. That's your soft spot. They're aware of it, and trying to be deceptive in that and bait some more throws, turn the football over is a huge thing. And man, I mean, Dak threw, I guess he did get bailed out by CD on the one, but ended up not throwing a pick, throwing 50 passes. There weren't too many that were really interceptable. So he was pretty good with ball placement today.
Oh, the OPI was a pick. I mean, that was a fourth down where you got to make a play, but this is kind of trivial, but Dak completed passes to 12 different people today.
Wow.
Who was that tight end, number 40? Like, what was his name?
He's a fullback.
Louque.
Yeah, he's like a H-back. He's like a little 240-pound fullback tight end, kind of like Kyler Granson.
Kavonte Turpin is an awesome story. Like, to play in the UFL, be undrafted, and then make some plays in the he's been very good since he came in the league. Yeah, I think he made a Pro Bowl as a return man. So
he did. He also got crushed in this game, I think, by maybe Kyle Hamilton on an end around.
He did. Do we want to talk about Justin Tucker?
Yeah, let's talk about Justin Tucker.
Brian?
I was going to kick it to Brian as well.
Why me?
It's your guy.
Everything's okay. He's my guy. He's still my guy.
As you're mid chewing, as you eat.
I have something to say on this.
Okay.
So sometimes this happens to kickers, and that's the end, and they're just done. And I think some people are starting to feel that way with Tucker right now. Sometimes it happens to them and it's not. I mean, this happened to Mason Crosby. Like, he was done for a little while there in Green Bay, and they just stuck with him, and he came back and he played for like another 5 or 6 or 7. Like, the guy was like 43 years old kicking field goals. It happened to Phil Dawson. He had a career resurgence, I think, in Cleveland, Chicago. He might have went back to the 49ers. It happened to Robbie Gould. Like, it happens to guys sometimes and they come back from it. So for all the people doomsaying, I understand the pessimism. Like, it looks really bad right now, but sometimes, like, these guys they go through ruts and they're able to come out of it, but who knows?
You summed it up so perfectly, perfect wavelength on where I'm at with it too. Like, the sample size is not huge, and the margin of error for anyone to go through a given slump is not large whatsoever across the league. Nobody has built up more goodwill than Justin Tucker. No one has a longer leash than Justin Tucker. He will be using all of that leash. Well, he won't be using all of that leash, but it will take a tremendous amount of that leash for him to be out. Like, he's going to have to start missing kicks horrifically. And I'll be frank, that miss today was maybe the first miss that was like, that was really not a competitive kick, it looked like. Which is a little disconcerting. But
everything is missed to the left. That is all I've noticed.
Yeah.
The left miss is in play.
But
big left miss.
Get a couple of right misses in there.
Big left miss to
push it a little bit.
I agree with both of you. There's I think doomsdaying is the correct phrasing, Jake. I think there's a lot
size thing. He kicked. He had one attempt today.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. And I just think, like, this guy's a Hall of Fame kicker, and he's going to work it out at his pace during the season. Could it cost the Ravens some games? Yes. Are the Ravens going to suddenly sign another kicker? They are not. So
I'm here to say it's not going to cost them any games.
Yeah, I mean, correct. I mean, it may not.
You could try to force a case for last week, but like, come on.
But I think this is the one part of fandom that like annoys me the most. It's like the guy's built up a decade of being unbelievable at his craft, arguably the best that's ever done it. And 3 games into this year, because he has not been at that high standard, now people are like, well,
how many games
what are we going to do?
How many games did he individually win for them when you had Joe Flacco on a bad knee with a bad back and you couldn't do anything on offense? How many games did he go 4 for 4, 5 for 5, 6 for 6 sometimes?
Like multiple 50-yarders. So, like, look, are we possibly seeing a dip from Hall of Fame level form? Potentially. And maybe that will, like, sustain for the last part of his career. But the idea that they're suddenly going to, like, go away from him, I just think is crazy. So, and then that'll be a weird discourse if he continues. Go ahead.
But I don't think anybody's like talking to that effect yet, but it's like people are making this out to be a big problem. And it's like, it's certainly something to keep your eye on because you're only as good as your last kick or something. Like it's going to be there in the back of everyone's mind. But
we are talking to a kicker, by the way. Brian was a kicker.
Yes. Great. That's a great point, Spenny.
I forget that sometimes because I was about to say kickers aren't people, but I love Brian.
Now the juxtaposition of
I never want to hear you say that again, by the way, after you get that point.
Aubrey booting that ball today, like not booting 65-yarder, just middle of the game, like not end of half, anything like that. Like, I think this guy will just go bang this 65-yarder, no big deal. Is honestly a little bit terrifying.
65. I mean, 65. Call me when you hit it from 66.
But
partner.
Here's the thing: like everyone,
like, come on.
Everyone, obviously, Aubrey's incredible. But this is the same kicker envy that everyone's had for the Ravens for 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's like now you just we kind of have to experience. Fun fact: Brandon Aubrey played for Notre Dame in soccer. Watched him play in the 2013 College Cup. That is a crazy that guy's the best kicker in the NFL or one of the best kickers in the NFL playing college soccer 10 years ago.
Missed his first 2 kicks, hasn't missed since, and that includes a 65-yarder.
And he made, didn't he like almost make the 66-yarder or 67-yarder in Cleveland? Like that, you know.
Yes.
I want to say the stat there, his career over 50 yards, he's like 15 of 15 now.
He's gross.
That's ridiculous.
Sad for Chiefs fans that Harrison Butker will never ascend to be the best kicker in the NFL. He wasn't with Tucker, and now this guy's better than him too.
I do, yeah. I really do hate to see that for a great guy who. Yeah, you hate to see that for one of the better guys.
For a strong macho male who takes care of the household.
Yeah, big loss for men writ large there.
Yeah, I think we all feel it. All 4 of us.
Yeah.
We want to talk about how the Ravens lead the league in penalties. Turner W has. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. Also, if you're on Twitter, we would love to have you switch over to YouTube. Easiest way you can support the podcast is simply just to subscribe and tune in on YouTube. That pays us directly. So appreciate that. That allows us to do some more marketing and spread the word of the podcast when you do. Do we want to talk about the penalties? Yeah, the Ravens lead the league in penalties. It was nasty. It was gross. So many of them are so weird. So many of them are so weird. I did not feel there weren't illegal formations. There were not procedural issues. Was there a false start? Maybe one. There was a delay of game. There was a delay of game where Lamar was doing a lot at the line of scrimmage. Delay game. Harbaugh looked perplexed by that one and just dumbfounded and very, very disappointed. I believe the Ravens might have ended up converting a new set of downs after that. I'll have to go back and check. I do want to mention Ben Cleveland, I just saw here, side note, did get into the game as an eligible receiver on the Derrick Henry touchdown there. So got one snap.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what to say about the penalties. If they're not procedural, it's not like they're making egregious. I feel like there wasn't a boneheaded play today.
It feels unlucky at this point. Like after that Raiders game, I was incensed, and I was more than anything mad at John Harbaugh because I kept saying throughout this past week, like that's just one that like if you're this type of head coach, you just have to raise the floor and win that. But there was bad penalty luck in that game. It continued in this game. There was some against the Chiefs too. Deontay Lee from The Athletic. Baltimore is the most penalized team in the NFL by volume. By EPA, they've taken a touchdown off the board on offense and given their opponents 1 defensively. That's crazy. You can't be doing the game. I mean, that's 7 points. Like, it's unacceptable. But like, again, like I'm saying, I feel like it's a little bit of bad luck too. Like that has to start swinging back their way a little bit.
I thought the refs wanted the Ravens to win in the first half. I genuinely did. I put it in my halftime notes that I tweet out. It felt like the thumb was being pushed on the scale for the Ravens in the beginning. Immediately, the Cowboys were penalized like 3 times, and then the scale just came back the other way. So I don't know what to say about it. It's something that's been going on forever. It just feels like there's a little outside influence at times. It's hard to pick up on. Some people like to include that in their handicapping, things like that. But no one's doing something so stupid where it's like, wow, this is such an undisciplined team. They're hot-headed, boneheaded. They can't line up correctly. Like, part of those were the Ronnie Stanley illegal formations that we haven't seen called at a high rate since that game. That was 3 of them?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's just very weird so far. And again, I'm going to tie that back. My glass half full will be that's overcoming adversity. Your kicker misses. You botch an onside kick and you're getting weird roughing the passer, weird calls late in the game. All of that is ties back. People are going to hate me for saying this, but like, isn't that the whole thing of who's got it better than us? Like, fuck that. Win anyway.
Yeah,
they did.
Good. It's the Jocko Willink. We got a million penalties for over 100 yards. Good.
That's the whole point. So that's why
a Jocko Willink reference, Jake.
That was Harbaugh. That was Lamar's first ever win against the Bengals, right? John Harbaugh.
We wound up throwing like, what is he saying to me right now? Who is that?
Yeah, who is this? Kind of old man. What is he ranting about? Ranting and raving. But gets more. They got to get more Jocko Willink back in there. I mentioned the Jarhead. Showing the soldiers the Vietnam footage before they went into the Gulf War. They should do that with the Cowboys 2008 game, closing out the Cowboys season. Maybe they did that. Who could say?
Maybe they did. We had a comment here. Easy E. Panthers destroyed the Raiders, of course. And Lamar Jackson had some pretty interesting post-game comments about this game and asked, I can't remember what the exact question was, but he alluded to the fact that he said this is not high school football. This is not college football. We're not playing against walk-ons. These are all 5 stars. It's all 5 stars in the NFL. You are a 5-star player. He said a team might just see something on film, and if we can't adjust to it, they can beat us, and that's football. So I like those comments that I heard out of him, and it's tough. We see Malik Willis come in and win a couple games. You see Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton is the only quarterback through almost 3 weeks that has put up 3 touchdowns and 300 yards passing in one game so far, which is insane to say. So truly, that's why they always come back to it's a week-to-week league. We've heard it our entire lives. People hate when you say that, but man, it really is, and that's why you can't let any game slip through your fingers. The Ravens let one slip through their fingers against the Raiders last week. This one almost did, and that's why it feels good. It feels like you can turn the page a little bit on the curse, or we're unlucky, we're damned, the refs are against us. They won anyway. The quarterback made the play at the end of the game and got through all that shit. So hopefully it makes the Ravens more confident. What has been such a big complaint? When the Ravens are the 1 seed and they never trail and they're favorites in every game the regular season and they like have one kind of loss. Oh, they haven't been tested. Oh, they haven't gone through enough adversity. Oh, they haven't trailed late. Oh, 2-minute drill. Oh, Lamar can't, blah, blah, blah.
And what do we talk about?
Out of the way early. All that's out of the way through 3 weeks. That's happened. So,
and one thing we talked about all week is that the players just did not seem concerned in the slightest. Like, they seemed calm. They seemed like, you know what, we're 0-2, but like, we're talented enough. We can get through this. And I think that drew the ire of some fans. I think I was a little like, all right, what are we doing here? Like, this is kind of a dire situation, but they didn't seem panicked. And, people could say that they panicked in this fourth quarter, but to me, it did not feel that way. You mentioned those post-game comments with Lamar. Incredible. I mean, dropping a, trigger warning, dropping a suicide watch thing, obviously in jest. Incredible thing to say there.
Probably not his best turn of phrase he's ever.
Yeah, no, I think that maybe could have phrased that one a little bit better, but that is the Lamar Jackson experience. And then Taylor, I don't know if you caught this, but after that interview with Henry, and I think Lamar got a little bit of burn, massive bear hug with your guy Tom Rinaldi there.
I did. No, I watched that.
Yeah,
Rinaldi had the reporter early in the game that was like, the Ravens aren't panicked. What I don't understand about that discourse that you're talking about, Jake, of like fans wanting teams to sound more concerned publicly, is like, you're just, unless it is legitimately like there's not a belief, then you're going to get those comments. Like, that's just not how good locker rooms act. Like, they're not going to come out publicly during the week and be like, yeah, this is do or die. Like, it's just, that stuff doesn't, like, And if they had
Very
said that,
stress. You don't put that on yourself.
And in week 3 too. Right?
And if they had said that, we would have been like, why are they really like, this is the desperate, we would have said, man, like Harbaugh must not have control if they're that desperate, that's the line of thinking that they're putting all that pressure on themselves. So it's like that, those type of comments are just a no win for the people involved. I've never understood why fans are like, God, they're just not, why aren't they as concerned as we are? Well, like when you're in a locker room with all those guys, you can't exude that type of panic. Otherwise you're going to play that way. So I thought how they addressed it was good. Like I know people got upset with Harbaugh about the comments about the offensive line and all those things, but like he's going to say what he's going to say. All that matters if you know, is what he says behind the scenes, as long as it's not egregious what he says publicly, which
kept receipts.
Yeah.
You just want to keep it quiet. You want to, keep things as neutral as you can so it doesn't creep in on your guys, and internally you got to handle it and make sure you're managing the human beings inside of the locker room.
Yeah. So I like that I loved how they were all week. I thought that it showed in the way they came out and played on the first defensive and offensive drives of the game. I mean, they couldn't have looked more locked in and not panicked. And they went about their business in that way until it got weird at the end.
Derrick Henry is like
dead. That bear hug with Rinaldi. Bad turn of phrase by Lamar. It is what it is. It is the Lamar Jackson experience.
He's a South Florida boy, unapologetically.
Because you've given me the route to get into the broadcast. My first 4 quarters with Mr. Brady.
Thoughts?
Like a B-.
We didn't hear much of him. We were kind of in the.
We were all chit-chatting and stuff.
Yeah.
The worst part for Brady, this may end up being a better part for Brady, is like he's not amazing off the jump, so it'll allow him to kind of evolve and get better, which is probably good. Like Romo was so good at the beginning that then when he got bad, it's like, why is he no longer like predicting every play? I just loved Burkhardt and Greg Olsen. And so like not hearing Greg Olsen with Kevin Burkhardt, who I think is like outstanding. Like Kevin Burkhardt even got totally faked out by Lamar when he pulled it from Zay on on that last offensive play. And immediately was like, that's how good the fake was. I didn't see it. Like just totally was like, that guy's really, really good. So I don't know. Brady's just like really bad miss by Brady when the Cowboys are down 10 and they're 3rd and 10 from wherever they were, like the 30, 25, whatever it was. And Brady's like, this is clearly 4-down territory. It's like, it's definitely not clearly 4-down territory. Like if it's a sack or whatever, they have to kick. And Burkhardt's like, Tom, they could kick here. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're right. I guess it depends on how many yards they get here. It's like, if you're the analyst, like you got to, and you're Tom Brady, like you got to kind of have that. But I just thought he would be better. So maybe he will get there. But
he's not really trying to make it. I think he's not trying. He's trying so hard not to make it about himself and be Tom Brady. Yeah. That I think it's to his detriment a little almost.
If he would be a little more critical.
He may also not be as funny as the people managing his social are. And that is like the issue, that his social is so good. So I think he's that funny because, and that's obviously not him managing it. I'm sure he has some input, but he has people to do it. And so I'm expecting him to have good quips because I'm like, whenever I consume anything from Tom, it's on his Twitter in text. And so I'm like, this guy's just he's doing roasts. Like I just expected him to have a little more personality. And then I agree with you, Spenny. When they try to make it about him and they did the 28-3 and all that stuff, he almost sounds like uncomfortable recounting it because I think he thinks it's taking away from what's going on the field. And he sounded uncomfortable every time they brought it up. The good personal stuff was when he brought up Van Noy and was like, he's a great human being. I talked before the game. Like, that's good stuff. Yeah. But, yeah, I think it's like he just wants it to be about what's on the field because I think he has so much respect for what goes on down there. And when they try to make it about him and his career, he sounded totally uncomfortable talking about 20. He's like, yeah, I looked at whatever, and Dante Hightower gets the strip, and I'm like, here we go. It's like he just sounded weird talking about it.
He's not bad. Like I've listened to some, but he's just
I thought it was enjoyable.
He's just kind of boring to me. Like, and like that's not a bad thing. Like I think he's in general, like he can be a funny guy. He was funny on like Entourage, I think, when he like made the appearance.
Yeah,
like
he was very good on Entourage.
Yeah,
Turtle was not trying to talk to him at all whatsoever.
Yeah, and then he turned him around. He turned that charisma on, and he got Turtle to buy in and go eat dinner with him and Giselle. So that was great. RIP that relationship. But yeah, I mean, like he's just kind of like at this point, I think he's just kind of boring. Like you said, maybe he's got to take some time to come out of his shell. I think I'll give him some time. But like Greg Olsen,
he is a neophyte broadcaster on the biggest game of the week every single week. and people just expect these guys to come out and be amazing. Like live broadcasting is hard. Like we all kind of do this and we do the podcast, and it's like, this is not necessarily like to go back and forth and to get the chemistry. Like it takes time, and to do it on national TV where everyone dissects your every individual line.
And you've got like, you've got to let the play-by-play guy set it up. You've got producers in your ear talking to you as you are talking and like telling you what to do next. Like it's difficult to do. And like Greg Olson was like born to do it. He just is naturally charismatic. He was doing like stuff with Barstool like 10 years ago. He's been
and he got way more reps before he got America's Game of the Week. Whereas Tom Brady called like 4 practice games like in a studio somewhere, and it's like different than live TV. So I hope he gets better. And like I said, I kind of like that he hasn't come out of the gate gangbusters, because now he'll just kind of be able to evolve. And I hope when the Ravens have a game on Fox, like week 6 of next year, we're like, oh, Tom Brady, he's gotten pretty good at this. He doesn't take away from the broadcast at all. He's not crazy additive yet. I hope he gets a lot better. That's my broadcast take for today.
I like it. Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah, enjoyable stuff. Always love the broadcast corner there with Uncle T. Anything else we got to hit here in this one?
Man, I just really am pleased with I was talking about this a little bit earlier today, but I was really pleased with the tempo, the rhythm, the cadence. It seemed to me like the offensive line probably reduced their splits a little bit. It felt like when there were stunts coming in that Falele wasn't loose in a huge gap where he needed to move. I think they kind of cut it down. I think that these reps they're getting, they stuck with McCary and Falele. They didn't do the rotating, which you gotta cut it out. Just stick with the guys. Like we said, it's not going to help Falele trying to learn a new position and having 2 different guys next to you and creating more variables than needed. So was really pleased with the way they fired off the football. I did say earlier, you should have ran the ball well on the Cowboys, but they ran the ball as well as you can. Derrick Henry looked awesome. It was Tractor Cedo experience. The stiff arms were nasty. They got him involved in the pass game. It felt like they were mixing in Justice Hill in the run game, who is a good option back and has burst and is a tough mother and just signed that contract. So nice Justice Hill game too. Lamar Jackson. It felt like this Raiders game last week, it felt like Lamar was sore and beat up from the fucking Chiefs game. And they didn't want to run him. They didn't want to run boots and play action. They didn't want him getting hit. And it felt like they neutered themselves because of that a little bit. He was on the injury report. That could have been a little bit, we've mentioned it, but that could have been a little bit bigger of a factor. So was really pleased. Good offenses, fire off the ball, the tempo, the way that you run routes with purpose and where you settle is intentional. There's confidence in it. Bateman played with a lot of confidence today, got the touchdown, had a couple nice catches down the stretch. Zay Flowers played with confidence. Zay Flowers very definitive, getting north and south, not nearly as much dancing as we saw week 1. Got that out of his system a little bit. The turf does help. Being able to actually put your foot in the ground and drive off of turf is a much different experience. And again, I wish we could see this team on turf a little bit more because they're built like that. But Charlie Kohler, we mentioned. I think Ricard had a nice game. This offensive line took care of business for the most part. They limited the amount of true dropbacks they had. They ran a lot of play action. Lamar Jackson was 6 for 6 halfway through the second quarter, until they want to pick up the pace and score a little bit. So they didn't get in their own way in that sense. The onside kick, all that shit we talked about. I'm very pleased with the execution of the offense as a whole. I don't really have anything negative to say. Mark Andrews, someone we didn't talk about, he played very few snaps in this game. They didn't get the ball to Isaiah Likely
in this game.
Yes, he did have a target. It was late target they missed in the fourth quarter. They tried to go to him in that third down call, but the offense had a lot of intention, a lot of confidence, and you can tell they were locked in this week. You can tell that they took this seriously and were bought in all the way. That's why it was unfortunate to see them have to sit for so long and not get a chance to stay in rhythm as the onside kick and the touchdowns and all the plays we talked about with the Cowboys. But really pleased with the offense. Good learning experience for the defense. That is the type of execution you need. That is the type of intentional play calling you need. That is how you protect an offensive line. That is how you get the football ran. Cowboys were a nice steak tartare, rare to just chew the fuck up when you have a Bills front coming to town next week on a short rest. That's a lot better, a lot more discipline, and make you go the long, hard way, the same way the Ravens try to do. So really pleased with the offense as a whole. I thought Lamar Jackson had great command on the road. It's going to be better at home. It should be better at home. Unfortunately, not on the turf. I'm going to say it 100 times. I thought it was sick watching Nelson Aguilar put his foot down and be able to drive. Lamar Jackson looked so fast. Zay looked so fast. They won without the tight ends.
Yeah.
They didn't use Likely. They didn't use Andrews. They used the backs and used the receivers in the pass game. That's what it was. So They did what they needed to do. They were smart. I thought Monken, I thought Lamar, again, those are married. The play calls go to the $250 million quarterback and the offensive coordinator. And there was intention behind a lot of what they did today. Lamar was sick throwing on time and getting the ball downfield to the outside, spraying underneath, quick, timing, hitting the ball at the top of his drop. So those were all really fun. I'm excited to go through the tape this week. We'll be doing the Monday tape release tomorrow, digging through the tape, and then we'll talk about it on the jumbo set, all that stuff. But really, really pleased with the Ravens offense today.
Yeah, we also didn't mention, and we don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but Kyle Hamilton, loved him decleating that guy early in the game, ripping the helmet off. Probably should have been a penalty, but that was awesome.
Definitely was a penalty. He definitely
was a penalty.
Yeah. And then Trenton Simpson, awesome game too. It was early on. He was just sideline to sideline, making some good plays, made some good plays in the passing game too. We'll break that down on the jumbo set as well. A shout out to those guys.
You see the athleticism. I remember when we talked about him when he got drafted, and Spenny, you kind of broke him down. You see all that pure athleticism when he flies around the field. That is like very evident to, I think, anybody that's watching the game.
Yep.
Right. Not a terribly, it wasn't a huge game for Travis Jones, really. It wasn't a huge game for Owe. It wasn't a huge game for Ajabo, really. The pass rush, that's one thing I'm looking at too. It's tough. It's really hard to continue rushing on long drives over and over and over and over and over again. You get tired out. They trap you on the field going no tempo there. So they were not getting any pressure either. That was part of the collapse and why the Cowboys did actually score the touchdowns, which can't get past. I'm going to give a lot of credit to that onside kick. They were not getting pressure late in this game. They started to blitz a little bit more. We had some comments in here about the blitz, I think, but weren't able to generate a lot of pressure late. Dak also got folded like a lawn chair a couple times. That dude's a tough mother, man. He's deceptively a big dude, and he got hit hard quite a few times in this one, but late, not enough pressure. And man, I mean, Nate Wiggins was playing on the outside. Marlon Humphrey kicked into the slot a little more. Brandon Stevens on the other side. Those guys were playing fast and physical, like we said. So this defense, still a learning experience. People keep talking about Mike McDonald, who is now 3-0 and just walloped the Dolphins in Seattle. Absolutely sick. DK Metcalf actually being used the right way for once. And it hasn't been that bad. I mean, it hasn't been that bad. The Mike McDonald Dolphins thing with Tyreek Hill and Marlon Humphrey it hasn't been that bad. So Zach Orr is younger. This is his first time calling plays. The Ravens did pimp out Mike McDonald to the Wolverines for a year to let him get that experience of radioing and doing all that physical shit you actually have to do to call a game at this level. And was not I'm not disappointed with Zach Orr, but I think he definitely sees what he needs to do in terms of mixing it up. And again, I'll refer back to flipping that switch from I'm up 3 scores to, we might only be up 1 score is a tough switch to flip. And that's the kind of self-analysis, looking in the mirror that you need to do to get better in that regard, because they did let up 2 touchdowns. They did not get off the field. They didn't. So need to be able to figure out a way to flip that switch. It's much easier said than done. I'm making a very general statement, but was pretty pleased with that.
Got to step on the throat.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then here we go. Lamar missed 1 throw. It's the only fucking play he didn't make all day.
It wasn't even a duck. That was like I said, that was like Corbin Burns just fired.
Yeah, he fired it. Yeah,
98 miles per hour, just right over the head.
Like a 6-yard throw. And maybe he did that because he didn't want to throw a pick. He's like, if I throw this really fucking hard, it won't get intercepted.
Yeah, I was going to make a small comment there. His ball control, both, limiting fumbles. I don't know if has a fumble and picks this year. He's looked very good through 3 games controlling the football, which I know is
the only one he's only thrown 1, right? And it was driving a tightly contested catch to Bateman, and it was a
Bateman. Yep.
That's not a PFF's not going to chart that as a turnover worthy throw. It was not on Lamar.
Okay. All right, boys. That all we got?
Brian, I need something from Brian here. I know Brian's been ruminating. I like when you stew for a while and you'll kind of peruse the internet and float in your own thoughts.
I like to think I put him in a little bag of marinade. I throw him in the crisper. I let him sit for a little bit, and then I take him out. I let him close his mouth.
I'm just trying to flush that 4th quarter away. I think you summed it up well there, Spen. I'm focused on Buffalo. We're on to Buffalo. What do you think the line is for that?
Ravens by 1.
I think it's going to be Bills -3.
Wow. Any guess, Taylor?
Pick.
Wow. The line's out. It's Ravens -2.5.
So I win the guess the lines game. We should make that a segment. Actually, we should go through every game and we should guess the lines. And Do like a
Has anybody ever done
idea.
that?
I don't think anyone's ever done that.
That's a great idea.
By the way, going to be that pod is the Ravens Cowboys game will be a big part of that.
Your team, by the way. He never says Cowboys. Bill never says the Cowboys. He says your team.
He does not. Guess the Lines has some good moments over the years.
I'm still a fan. Bill still got the fastball. I love Bill calling out Woj, by the way. Fantastic.
That was good. That was a good clip. For Bill. Yeah. Woj. See you. Woj.
I would like to make one side comment as well in the world of commentating. Manning cast with Bill Belichick has been amazing on Monday.
Peepaw.
I hate when they have Kevin Hart on. I hate when they have
what a ricochet shot.
I hate when they have Pete Davidson on. They had fucking Miles Teller on. He was horrible. They had him on for like 8 minutes. It's Bill in the first half. When they turn on an entertainment celebrity guest, I turn it off then. But with Bill, if Bill's on, it is such a good football watching experience. If your team is not in the game, I get you don't want to see Peyton's giant head and Eli with his mouth open on the side of the screen while your team's throwing an interception and all that stuff. But
that's just bad football, right? You gotta get yourself down there, right?
I mean, it's Bill on everything I've seen him on. He was great on the McAfee draft coverage. He every time he pops up on that CW show. Is Inside the NFL on CW now? Is that Inside the NFL?
It is, but I feel like it's also somehow on the NFL Network. I was thinking about this yesterday.
He's good on that. He's been good on that too.
They got it on YouTube, I think, too. So, yeah, good stuff.
I have not dealt with Manning cast. They have the doubleheader tomorrow, so I don't know if they have one tomorrow. Peyton Manning just walked out with Morgan Wallen at his concert at Tennessee today, so he's got that going on right now.
I enjoy Omaha Productions. I like what they do.
Yeah, they do a good job.
That might be it, boys.
Okay.
I feel good. I like this game. I like this game.
Well, we're happy. I'm happy. I was very happy.
Yeah, very happy too. Season on the brink. You pulled it back. Like I said, see how Johnny Harbaugh wriggles his way out of this jam. And guess what? Next week on Baltimore Ravens, 1-2, Bills coming to town. Got to keep digging. Just got to keep, climbing that wall, scale the mountain, slay the dragon. See if you can do it.
I've been waiting all day for Sunday night.
Kirk O'Chains.
Yeah, Kirk O'Chain's doing, it seems like he's doing a good job down there. Great job by Kirk. Talking about broadcast stuff, doing a Matt Harvey Qualcomm shout out on the Matt Harvey Qualcomm thing on Dan Patrick. He was there to honor Qualcomm.
When Dan Patrick was on the NBC Sports Network all the time, I used to have that on. I just don't watch it now that it's one on Peacock. Yeah. But that used to be a very good show. I don't know if it's still as good, but
I think it still is. I haven't listened either, but I would listen on podcast when they would release it like 5 years ago. Love Dan Patrick and all those guys. And yeah, we're just here to honor Qualcomm. But overall, I think that'll do it. I mean, we've probably tried to close this thing out 3 separate times. We come back to broadcast takes and this and that, and Trenton Simpson on my end. So, we're just doing it live. That's what happens. But that'll officially do it. Thank you, everyone, for hanging with us here. Like I said, after just a pulse-pounding win down at Jerryworld, the Ravens and the Cowboys faced off at high noon down in the OK Corral, and the Ravens just drew a little bit faster. That big iron on their hip, shot them down the street. I know this is a sensitive gun violence culture, so I don't want to make too much light of that. But once again, thank you all for hanging with us. If you liked what you saw, feel free to subscribe to us here on YouTube. Like Spenny said, it helps us out a lot. Comment on the YouTube video but they didn't. I would have had to jump off a roof, LMFAO of the world's tallest building, and then he prays. Okay, so maybe that's where Lamar Jackson, for all a great endorsement of the YouTube pigs there. If you're watching on YouTube, and if you're not, you're gonna have to come to the YouTube and see what we were just talking about there. Interesting stuff from Lamar Jackson, and maybe a little bit of a color to his post-game comments, which were maybe a little bit borderline. But once again, subscribe to the YouTube, comment on all the videos. If you're listening on pods, you can subscribe to us there too. You can find us on social media at Exit52 Podcast on Instagram and on X. I am at Jake Louque. That's LOUQUE. Brian at Barstool Banks. Spenny at Ravens 4 Dummies. That is the number 4 in the middle. Taylor at Taylor Smyth 10, and Eric, that scumbag who is just one of the absolute worst straw men in the entire world. Just digging so things up. True muckraker if there ever was one. You can find him at EDITTI22. Thank you to Jimmy's Famous Seafood. Thank you to Black Eyed Susan Spices. Thank you to Fed Thrill. And thank you to Clipper City Barber Company. We appreciate you all, and we will be back very, very soon.
See ya.
Arrivederci.